WWE 2K25 is another installment in the long-running franchise of the WWE, and in my opinion, is arguably the best. And that's saying a lot because WWE 2K24 is considered the best by a lot of folks, including with the reviews that we've got. Uh, so if you are a fan of the WWE and all of its superstars, supernatural or otherwise, this is the game for you. If you are a fan of just combat and video games and slamming people through tables and against walls in the canvas, this is the game for you.
Can you talk a bit about the game's new intergender match functionality and the hurdles the team may have had to overcome with its implementation?
Yeah. So this is the first time that we've had intergender matches in a long while. I'm not sure if you're familiar with my history, but I've been working on this franchise since 2005, and I was there. At this game before it was WWE 2K, and it was SmackDown versus Raw, and SmackDown before that. It did feature intergender wrestling. We stopped that, and I want to say it was year 2008, and we are now bringing it back. And in terms of any hurdles, honestly, the biggest hurdle was just making sure, because over the years, when we had the restriction of, females can only wrestle females, males can only wrestle males, we had to adjust our animations, the IK, the attach points, to make sure that, okay, if you're attacking this male rig, to accommodate for their various sizes. The women in our game are a lot smaller. And so by reintroducing this functionality, our animators had to go through and just make some tweaks to make sure that, if you're playing Andre the Giant and you're wrestling a Liv Morgan, who their height and weight discrepancies are such that you want to make sure that Andre isn't just grabbing air, and so we had to, kind of go through and, make some adjustments on the IK front, which we've done. That was probably the biggest hurdle. But actually just re-enabling this was almost like hitting on a light switch. So we did that, and then we just had to clean up everything to make sure that the collision of all the various body types was such where it wasn't going to look funky, for lack of a better word.
Sure.
And in terms of the intergender wrestling, it is something that, players can opt into if they want. I know I've read some stuff online where people are like, I really don't, this isn't really my bag. And it's like, and that's fine. There's nothing in the game that's going to force any player into a match where they have to, compete against, a female or whatever. It's all on the player. But for us, we just think that it's a great way. It just opens up all these different match types and opponent opportunities. And we just think, it's a video game, it's wrestling, and in our vantage point, it's honestly, it's akin to a Marvel movie. I mean, I love the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I still got to check out this new Captain America movie.
Yeah.
But it's like seeing Black Widow, putting a beat down on, whether it was Captain America, the Winter Soldier, anybody that she's fought in the past. So we just think it just opens up a wider amount of matchmaking opportunities. And, it is something that the fans have been requesting for a while, and we're glad to have it back.
Sure. Why was WWE 2K25 the right game for reintroducing this feature? Was there previously pushback from WWE or other factors that prevented it from being implemented previously?
Honestly, I don't think there was any pushback other than the fact that it was just such a long-standing, kind of restriction of our game, right? Where it was just, men compete against the men, women compete against the women. And that has just been such our through line for, like I said, we made the change in, almost a decade ago, and it just became a standard. And over the years, you look at the WWE product, and there have been times where you've seen women. Who was it? Was it Nia Jax who was in one of the male Royal Rumbles, or something like that in recent memory? And then you had I remember there was an instance where Rhea Ripley, she body slammed, I want to say it was Luke Gallows, and it was just like, whoa, and it kind of got the fan base being like, oh, maybe WWE is getting a little more lax now with having intergender combat. And as a company, we just kind of approached them, my superiors, hey, how would you guys feel if we re-enabled intergender matchups? And they were like, yeah, by all means. And the funny thing is that we actually got the okay to do this during development of 2K24, but we got the okay way too late in our development cycle where we couldn't, do what we needed to do. As I mentioned before, like adjust the animations and make sure that, our collisions with the characters were going to be appropriate. And so once we got that okay, we were like, hey, for 25, let's move ahead with this. And this is where we're at now.
Can you provide some details regarding why the island is only available on PS5 and Xbox Series?
Yeah. I mean, the short answer is just hardware limitations of the older consoles mixed with various hardware specs that people have playing on PC. And just to get the most optimal and the best experience, it was just deemed that restricting it to the current consoles of the PS5 and Xbox Series X was going to provide us with the best experience in our first year. Now, again, I emphasize first year. Maybe moving forward, we kind of figured the things out, and like these restrictions, we can kind of come back to them and investigate whether or not we can, uh, you know, allow the island for everything. But for this first year, I mean, it's one of those things where you only get one time to make a good first impression, right? And so we wanted the island to have, to be as good as it could possibly be, and in order to ensure that, we had to institute this restriction on where you could play it.
Following January's partnership announcement between WWE and TNA, can players expect to see TNA talent join the game's roster through post-launch DLC and the like?
It's a great question. It's something that we're all excited about the potential of maybe one day incorporating TNA into our game. But as of today, as I'm talking to you right now, we're still discussing things. So just kind of a wait and see type of thing. I
Sure.
know it's not the greatest answer, but it's the
No,
truthful
it's
one.
a non-no answer, so
Yeah.
that works. With some superstars and especially legends having played multiple personas, if you will, throughout their careers, how does the team decide which versions of these individuals make it into the final game?
That's also a great question. When we bring in any legend alumni, we, like I said, we get together as a team and just kind of figure out what is the best version of this character, or what are we trying to achieve with this character. When it comes to DLC, like there's a legend that will be announced soon that is part of our DLC, and I ran with the idea of, look, let's bring this character in their best light, meaning it was a slightly younger version of them as opposed to an older version. So it's just depends on the character, depends on the wrestler. But it is a team effort. We all come together and just kind of figure out, what is the best version of this character that we can bring outside of if we're like recreating history in like one of our showcases
Sure.
or whatever.
Are there any plans to bring WWE 2K25 or future series installments to the Switch 2?
You know what? That's the decision that's way above me when it comes to what platforms that the game is played on. But I know that our brain trust. I mean, if it makes sense to those way above me, then I would not be surprised if in the future you'll see WWE once again on a Nintendo platform. But yeah, I really don't have any say into that. It'd be great though.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I want this game on as many platforms as possible. So it's like if it works for the Switch, it's like let's go. That's just my own personal take.
Who are some of your favorite legends featured on this year's roster?
I always lean on The Rock, and I know The Rock. The Rock's been in the game. He's been in like all of our games,
And for good reason.
and for good reason, right? I say, but The Rock that we have this year, we've got the final boss version of The Rock. And The Rock always holds a special place in my heart because he's the guy that got me into pro wrestling. I'm 45 years old. I grew up with the rock and wrestling,
Yep.
era and all that.
Same. Mhm.
I remember it, but I was never a fan as a kid, even though I did have an LJN King Kong Bundy action figure. So one of my aunts got it for me for some reason. Like, where's my GI Joe? I don't want this. But to this day, I have an affection for King Kong Bundy because of that. But it was The Rock when I was in college. My buddies, they would drag me over to their dorm to watch wrestling, and I was like, I don't want to watch this. And I remember the first time I was there, I heard The Rock, and he was cutting a promo, and I was like, who's this guy? He just sounded completely different from any other wrestler that I'd heard at that point. And I was an immediate fan, and he is the one that pulled me in to the world of professional wrestling, specifically WWE, WWF at the time. And so I just love The Rock, and I'm glad that we were able to incorporate uh, his new final boss persona. His entrance looks freaking amazing. I can't wait for the fans to see it. If it hasn't already been posted, I'm not sure if they posted it on Twitter yet. But yeah, he's one of the guys that I'm excited for the fans to get their hands on.
Okay, same sort of topic. Who is your favorite new superstar or legend who wasn't in last year's game?
This is easy for me. So I got two. Javon Evans. I'm a big fan of NXT. I love NXT. It's it's so damn wacky sometimes, but so entertaining. But Javon Evans is a guy who just the first time I saw him, I was just like, oh my god, this guy is incredible. Like I think he's 22, 21 years old, and is just so remarkable in the ring. His athleticism, his high flying. I became an immediate fan, and I could not wait to work on his moveset and to put his character together. And so he's somebody that I was very happy to see make their debut into the franchise this year. And another wrestler is Jada Parker. Um, I just thought she came on the scene in NXT and immediately, I'll frame it like this too, where it's like I love NXT because I like seeing these younger stars and seeing them develop and seeing the potential that they may have. And in both cases of Javon Evans and Jada Parker, the improvements that I saw from them week over week was just amazing. It was like, wow. I mean, she's such a great talker. She's gotten really good in the ring in a very short time. And so I'm glad to have both of them in the game this year.
Which features or additions are you most excited for players to discover in WWE 2K25?
So a lot of things actually. So chain wrestling is something that was introduced in the franchise way back in 2K15 and was removed in 2K22. And fans have been clamoring for it to come back and is now back in 2K25. Chain wrestling, is again, at the start of the match, you see the two wrestlers, exchanging the collar and elbow and going from the side headlock, the wrist lock, just that opening kind of display of technical acumen is something that the fans had missed. I'm glad that we were able to bring it back. It's fun to play. It looks amazing, and it lasts just long enough to where it doesn't, overstay its welcome. So I think longstanding fans will be happy to see that back. Um, Promos in our universe mode, the ability to cut promos on your opponents. Again, a feature that had been in previous iterations of the game. And the one thing I love about our fan base is that they are not shy about letting us know what they like, what they want back. And so these are two things that they were very much like, hey guys, if you're listening, we want these two things back ASAP. And so we brought them back, maybe not as quickly as fans would have liked, but we just wanted, if we were going to bring anything back, we just want to make sure that it's as good and as solid and as fun as it can possibly be. And we've achieved that with those two things. And we have the new Underground match, which I'm excited about. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Underground. It's an NXT match type. It's a match in a ring with no ropes, and it's themed more like an MMA type fight, where the only way to win is by knockout or submission. It's got its own unique presentation where it's a darkened atmosphere. You have ringside spectators surrounding the ring that will pound on the mat during certain actions. Probably going to end up being one of the more approachable match types in the game because it's the closest match that we have in the game that's more akin to like a fighting game where you don't have to worry about pinning. You're basically just fighting until you can knock the person out or you submit them. And we just have a whole bunch of cool interactions that you can do. You can German suplex people that are on the edge of the ring to ringside. It's just really brutal. And I just think from a presentation standpoint, it really stands out in a unique way.
You kind of touched on this a bit, but if players have lapsed from keeping up with the yearly games, what would you want them to know about 2K25 that may encourage them to try this one?
Oh man, that's a good question. I think at the end of it, if you're a Laps fan, and this is one thing, I mean, I will say this about our past 2 games, 3 games, is that Laps or no, I think anybody can, boot up, 2K25, anybody who is just a fan of good gameplay and can have a good time and start to have a good time immediately. 2K24 was, I would say the same thing about that. And playing 2K25 and seeing the improvements in every regard, I just think it's a fun game to play. And and if you are lapsed, it means that you were a fan at a certain point in time. And I think if you were to pick up 2K25, you'd be right at home. You'd be like, wow, this game has never felt this good, this responsive, looked as good as it does. And so I would just, recommend, it's like, hey, if you're thinking about it, if you played before, maybe there were some things you didn't like. I was, hey, well, come on back, give us a try. I think you'll be happy you did. We've got a lot of cool things that we've done this year, and our game is just so big. From exhibition matches to universe to the showcase that's themed around the bloodline. Roman Reigns' family, and the island, which is brand new. I just think there's so much content within the game. I mean, it's my faction. There are all these various modes that on their own are special, but taken together is just, I mean, talk about value for your buck. In my opinion, and it's fun. And again, I mean, look, if the game wasn't fun to play, none of these modes would matter. But the game is fun, and it's yeah, that's what it's a fun game to play.